Are your onions sprouting too quickly, going soft, or getting moldy before you even get to them? You're not alone, but the reason this is happening is probably due to something you're doing unknowingly. You could be storing onions next to their arch nemesis, or maybe you're just suffocating them. This is a silent disaster happening in kitchens everywhere, turning a versatile staple into a waste of food and money. I'm going to show you the top mistake people make and how a simple storage change will keep your onions fresh and sturdy for months, not just weeks. So hang in there, you're about to save your onions and your wallet. Okay, let's get started. Think about the last time you brought home onions from the grocery store. Did you just throw the whole bag in the pantry? If so, you're not alone. But that simple act is mistake number one, and it's costing you delicious, long-lasting onions. That plastic bag, even with a few holes, is a prison for onions. It holds moisture. And moisture is the worst thing for an onion. That trapped moisture creates a stagnant, stale environment. The perfect environment for mold and rot. You'll start to see those nasty black spots, and the onion will feel mushy. That's because onions need to breathe. They need a constant flow of air to keep their delicate skin dry and protected. Now for the second part of this kitchen tragedy, the companions they frequently come into contact with. Where did you put that onion? Is it next to your potatoes? If you just said yes, you've found the most disastrous mistake in vegetable storage. Onions and potatoes are the worst roommates. Here's why. Onions release ethylene gas, a natural hormone that tells nearby vegetables to ripen and sprout. Potatoes are extremely sensitive to this gas, so your onions are basically screaming to sprout at them. But potatoes fight back with a secret weapon of their own: moisture. Potatoes have a high water content and release water into the air. Onions absorb this moisture, and as we just mentioned, cause them to rot. So onions make potatoes sprout, and potatoes make onions rot. It's a vicious cycle of spoilage, but fortunately, just spacing them a few feet apart solves the problem completely. First storage tip. First, I prepare a rectangular basket, the kind with many ventilation holes to allow air to circulate easily, helping the onions not to steam. Next, I sprinkle a thin layer of baking soda on the bottom of the basket. Baking soda has the ability to absorb moisture and deodorize very well, so it will help keep the onions dry and airy, avoiding mold or root growth. Then, I cover the baking soda layer with a thin layer of paper towel. This layer of paper helps to separate the onions directly from the baking soda powder, while still maintaining the ability to absorb moisture effectively. Finally, I arrange each onion in the basket, placing it neatly, avoiding stacking it too high to avoid crushing the outer skin. Once the basket is covered, I place it in a dry, cool place and away from direct sunlight. Onions like to be refrigerated at temperatures between 45 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit, about 7 and 13 degrees Celsius. Warmer than a refrigerator, but cooler than most rooms. This cool temperature keeps the onions from getting too hot, so they don't think it's spring and start sprouting. This way, onions can last 2 to 3 weeks longer than usual, without getting mushy or sprouting, and most importantly, they retain their natural aroma. Your second preservation method is the hanging method. This is a classic, time-tested technique, and my favorite because it ensures great air circulation. We'll use pantyhose for this. I know it sounds weird, but trust me, it works. Take a clean pair of pantyhose. Drop an onion between your toes and tie a knot right at the top. Where are you from? Let us know in the comments. It's great that we can make friends from all over the world. Continue until you have one onion. You can hang it in a cool, dark basement or pantry. The knots keep the onions from touching each other, so one bad onion won't ruin the whole bunch. And the nylon is perfectly ventilated. When you need an onion, just cut one from the bottom up, or you can easily untie the knot and take out the onion. This way, you can reuse the tights many times. Next, I will share a very simple but extremely effective way to preserve onions. That is, using a mesh bag. First, I prepare a bag of fresh onions that I just bought. Normally, onions bought at the supermarket or market will be stored in a sealed plastic bag, which prevents the steam from escaping, making it easy for the onions to become damp, rot, or sprout after a few days. Therefore, immediately after buying them, I transferred all the onions from the plastic bag to a mesh bag. When arranging, I place each onion neatly, avoiding throwing it hard so as not to crush the thin outer skin. Just arrange them like that until they are all gone. Then gently tie the bag so that the onions do not fall out but still ensure ventilation. The advantage of the mesh bag is that it circulates air well, releases moisture quickly, keeping the onions dry, not absorbing sweat, and reducing the risk of rotting or mold. Finally, I hang the bag of onions in a cool, dry place, away from direct sunlight or near the stove. This way, the onions can stay fresh for 3 to 4 weeks. The skin remains dry, the flesh is firm, and no sprouts appear. Never store whole, unpeeled onions in the fridge, as this will make them soft and watery. But as soon as you cut an onion, the rules change completely. At that point, the onion needs to be refrigerated. Store the cut onions in an airtight container in the fridge. They will last for about 7 to 10 days this way. Prepare a glass container washed and drained. Then line it with a layer of paper. Another great storage option is to freeze onions. This will extend the shelf life of onions by up to 6 months. You can chop the onions with a knife or use a food processor if you want to save time. Once chopped, put the onions in a container and put them in the freezer. Although frozen onions will lose their crunch, they are great for soups, stews, and stir-fries. There you have it. To keep onions fresh for months, just remember the recipe. If you found this video helpful, do me a favor and hit that like button. And I really want to know, what is your method of storing onions? Leave a comment below. I read them all, and am always looking for new tips. For more kitchen tips that will save you time and money, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thanks so much for watching, and see you in the next videos.